Hey everybody, before the video starts, I just want to say sorry for this video taking so long to come out. I just decided to take a break for a little bit, work on some other stuff like customs, and just kind of clear my head. This year has kind of been a mess, as I'm sure most of you know. So that's just all I really wanted to say. I hope you guys are doing well. Hope you're making it through this quarantine. And I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. I put a lot of work into it, and I hope it turns out well. So with that, thank you for watching, and let's get on with the video.
Have no fear, students. I am here.
Hello everyone, this is Kaiser, and I am here to bring you another action figure comparison video, that being of the man, the legend, the #1 hero, or at least used to be #1 hero, All Might. And honestly, this was kind of harder than I thought, considering that when it comes to All Might, there's a lot to talk about, especially with the 3 figures we're going to be looking at, that being the All Might figure from McFarlane, the All Might figure from Anime Heroes, and the All Might figure from Amazing Yamaguchi or Revoltech. There's a lot to go over, even though it's 3 simple figures, so I hope you guys do enjoy the video, and with that, let's get started. First up, we have sculpting and painting, and I think when it comes to All Might, we all know what we want. We want this superhuman man, the top tier of superhuman physique, and these figures pull that off fairly well. Starting with Anime Heroes, it does get the superhuman physique right, but I do have some problems with it. Usually when I look at these anime figures, I usually go to an official image to see how well the figure captures their appearance in the show. That's what I did from Dorian, that's what I did for Bakio. And for All Might, while it does show this superhuman physique, the Anime Heroes figure, I think it's a bit off, and that's because of the upper body. It honestly, in my opinion, looks a bit too muscular. It looks like a bit too broad and top heavy. That could just be me, but that's what I see when I look at this figure. When it comes to the paint though, while it is very clean, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. One thing that I wish these All Might figures would do is add the dark shading that we usually see on All Might. And I get that maybe some people wouldn't want that on their figure, but when it comes to All Might, for me, that's kind of like the main thing that sets him apart from other characters in the show. The fact that he has like this dark shading that makes him look like that kind of makes him look, you know, unique. It makes him look heroic in a way. I wish these figures would incorporate that, but sadly they don't really. But when it comes to the Anime Heroes, it's not inherently bad. The only real problem for me being how big the upper body looks. Moving on to McFarlane, again, it captures that superhero physique fairly well. But even then, there are problems with this figure. For one, the legs. And the thing is, I actually have this figure. I'll put up some footage of me, you know, actually having this figure. The problem is with the legs, they look a bit too skinny. If we look at like some of the official artwork for All Might, you can see that the thighs, you know, are a bit more muscular. But when it comes to the McFarlane figure, they look a bit lean in my opinion. And it kind of gives him like this very skinny V shape. Other than that, everything else is fine for the most part. The head for me is it's too small. I know when it comes to how proportions work for more muscular characters or just adult characters, they'll usually have a smaller head. But for the McFarlane figure, it looks a bit too small, and I'm pretty sure that's why people have been using the Band Presto statues in order to swap out heads, you know, make it look a bit better. When it comes to paint, whether you're getting the normal All Might costume or his Silver Age costume, I believe that's the right one. McFarlane has a kind of bad track record when it comes to paint application, and that even goes for my figure, because you'll find instances of bleeding on certain parts of the figure, paint not being there. Like, they have a bad paint quality control issue, and I wish that wasn't there, because figure honestly isn't that bad, but I'll get into that more. So yeah, McFarlane, not inherently bad, but it has its problems. Now moving on to Revoltech, or Amazing Yamaguchi. This is probably the best looking All Might, and if this sounds similar to what I said about Midoriya, that's because it kind of is. I just like how this figure looks. It captures All Might's appearance and physique quite perfectly. And even if it's a bit exaggerated, that's kind of the thing with Amazing Yamaguchi. Their action figures do tend to have a bit more exaggerated proportions, but I think it works for All Might since he is supposed to be like this buff superhuman, so I think it works. And for the paint, while it doesn't have the shading I wish it had, that doesn't mean the paint is bad. It still honestly looks really good. Probably the best painted figure out of the three. So when it comes to Amazing Yamaguchi, this honestly is the best. I know some of you were probably expecting that, but it's my opinion and that's what I think. Okay, so this is after I just recorded this segment. Something I forgot to mention about the sculpting and the painting actually comes from the faces. I'm so focused on the body that I almost forgot. But for the faces, again, when it comes to All Might, we all know that he's usually smiling, has a big toothy grin, and his eyes are usually blacked out. So I'll be going over those really quick. When it comes to anime heroes, I think it looks pretty good. It does look like All Might. But the fact that, again, since there's no real like black shading on any of these figures really, with anime heroes, it just kind of makes it look too clean. It still looks like All Might, don't get me wrong, but I still wish it was there. For McFarlane, again, it doesn't look bad. For me, the head kind of looks oddly realistic. Like, the hair specifically looks realistic, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it's something I noticed. And for the eyes, there's not really a lot of paint there, at least for my copy. While the eyes are blacked out somewhat, the fact is that the paint there is so minuscule that you kind of, it just doesn't look right, honestly. I'll show some pictures to show you what I mean. And for Amazing Yamaguchi, again, it does look the best. I do wish there was shading, but it's okay that it's not there. I still think it looks honestly really good. So yeah, almost forgot to talk about that. This doesn't change the ranking. It was just something I needed to throw in. So when it comes to the ranking of these figures, Amazing Yamaguchi is at first, Anime Heroes is at second, and McFarlane is at third. And if you're wondering why, while the McFarlane figure does have a somewhat better physique, the fact that it has paint issues kind of hinders it from being higher. Now we move on to articulation, and like before, we're not going to be talking about how many points of articulation the figures had, but how well the articulation works when you want to get the figures into certain poses. But for this video, I will be getting a bit more in-depth and detailed, because it does help with what I'm trying to say about these figures. Starting with Anime Heroes, I was actually surprised with how well the articulation is on this figure. And as far as I know, technically speaking, it's the only figure out of the three that has double jointed elbows. But the problem comes with the torso. if you watch D-Star's video, you'll see that while there is a waist swivel, it doesn't seem to work that well, or it just can't turn all the way. And it doesn't seem like there's really much of a diaphragm joint either. So you aren't able to get a ab crunch with this figure, which sucks for a character like All Might, since you do want to get him into fairly dynamic poses. But aside from that, everything else on this figure is pretty good. It's just the waist or diaphragm joint, or lack thereof, that holds it back. Moving on to McFarlane, this is probably the figure that has the most problems when it comes to articulation, one of them being the elbows. Now, I'm not exactly sure why McFarlane did this, but the elbows are sculpted at like a slight bend forward. So if you try to bend the arms going all the way down, there's going to be a bit of the sculpting that shows where the arm joint is. And I don't like that at all, because it just makes it look weird when you want to pose the arms going all the way down. Another problem is the ankles, and that's because the sculpting on the ankles, or I should say the boots, go over the joint where the ankle is. So if you want to get the foot moving forward and back, the sculpting is going to get in the way of that. And I get it, it's McFarlane, they do try to do detailed sculpting, but for this kind of seems like a weird choice, honestly. I don't honestly think people are going to care that the joint was exposed that way. But I guess that's just a minor problem. But one of the biggest problems, for me at least, came with the shoulder. And the thing is, I noticed that the McFarlane figure, at least the one that I got, has this type of ratchet joint. Because every time you move the arm forward, you'll hear a click. But on the other shoulder, it doesn't have that click. So when I tried to move the arm forward, it pops out. And it does this every time. Which is annoying, since all I'm trying to do is pose the arm forward. I'm not sure if this has happened to anybody else, but in some other cases, the arm just breaks, and that's not good. I'll show a video describing what I mean about the shoulders. Okay, so this is what I mean. So with this arm, when you move the shoulder forward, you can hear like a ratchet joint inside. But when you move this arm, you don't hear it at all. And when I do try to move it forward, it comes off. I'm not sure why it does this, but it really sucks, because all I'm trying to do is move it forward and it pops out. So yeah. But another problem that I have comes with the thigh swivel. And I've talked about this before. When it comes to McFarlane, the thigh swivel doesn't exactly work that well because of the sculpting around the joint. So while there is a thigh swivel and you're able to use it, you aren't really able to use it that well. But all those issues aside, this figure is still very poseable, and I'm happy about that. When it comes to Revoltech, it shouldn't come to a surprise that... Doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't be a surprise that this figure is probably the best articulated. And that's because it's Revoltech and it's kind of their thing. The only problem I can see with this figure is that the joints are going to probably be exposed in certain poses, or he's not going to look that natural when standing up. But seeing how Revoltech or Amazing Yamaguchi has gotten better with hiding joints and making them look, you know, normal when standing, I don't think that's going to be a problem with All Might, since he does look very good both in the standing neutral pose and being in a dynamic like punching or just heroic pose. So it still works pretty well. So when it comes to rankings, the first would be Revoltech or Amazing Yamaguchi. Second would be Anime Heroes. And third would be McFarlane, only because of how many problems the figure seems to have. And now we move on to accessories, and oh boy, this is probably going to be a short section, so let's just get into it. Starting with anime heroes. Now honestly, this is a pretty good batch for accessories when it comes to All Might, which includes a pair of fists, a pair of open palm hands, another open palm hand, and a thumbs up hand. And I think that's pretty good. And when it comes to heads, and this will be relevant later, I think it's fine if All Might doesn't come with a lot of like different head accessories or just different heads in general, since most of the time you see him smiling, so it just kind of makes sense that's going to be the main head, and that's all you really need for All Might. But these accessories, again, are pretty good and fit well for All Might, especially that thumbs up hand. Moving on to McFarlane, he comes with a pair of fists, a stand, a pair of open palm hands, and that's it.
Excuse me, what?
So you're telling me that you couldn't give All Might any more accessories? And the reason I see this as such a problem is because when it comes to the other figures in the line, we've seen them get other accessories that, you know, make sense. With Kirishima, he's got full-blown different arms, so you can activate his quirk. For Shoto and Bakugo, they get effect parts to show off their quirk. Even Uraraka gets a different stand to show off hers. So it's kind of sad that All Might doesn't come with anything else. At least give him a thumbs up hand or something. So that does kind of suck, and it does kind of limit what you can do when you want to show off your figure. And technically, if you want to count the alternate All Might, which includes a cape, but that's about it, so I'm not even sure if that counts. When it comes to Revoltech, it probably comes with the best assortment of accessories. When it comes to hands, he comes with many different hands, including peace sign hands, hands used for his Carolina Smash, which is actually pretty cool. He comes with actual different heads, which includes his normal smiling head, as always, I want to say kind of worried or done face head, which is pretty cool. And he comes with an angry bleeding head, which shows off when he uses too much of his quirk or is getting really into battle. And I like that this figure comes with different types of heads, because like I said, they could have easily just not included the figure with any, since most of the time you see All Might just smiling. But it's nice that they show off a lot more emotions with these three heads. And he also comes with different effect parts to show off the impact of his punches, which I find really cool, because when you think about how All Might's powers work, it does seem like he generates a lot of air, like pressurized air whenever he uses an attack, unlike Midoriya, who has this sort of green bluish electricity whenever he uses his quirk. And it's also pretty cool because when you think about it, All Might's powers does seem to generate a lot of wind, especially when he fought that sludge monster and made it rain, or even when he fought All For One and created a giant tornado.
Stop nerding out!
Oh, sorry, I was getting off track. But what I'm trying to say is that this figure has some pretty cool accessories. And when it comes to rankings, it shouldn't be a surprise that the Revoltech comes in first, Anime Heroes comes in second, and McFarlane unfortunately comes in last place. And now we move on to scale, and when it comes to scale and action figures, at least for me, I do try to keep it accurate. And for All Might, his official height is stated to be 7 feet and 2 inches. So when it comes to an action figure, it should be around that same height, or if it's in a bigger scale, it should at least be accurate. And for these All Might figures, I'll be using Midoriya as an example for the most part, since those two are usually paired up together. Starting with Anime Heroes, like I said with my other two comparison videos, I think the scale is fine for this All Might. Compared to Midoriya, he does seem to be a bit shorter, which is kind of funny, because with the Anime Heroes All Might, it's actually bigger, or I should say taller, than the McFarlane All Might, and we'll get to that later. But since the Anime Heroes Midoriya, which is taller in scale than the Figma Midoriya, just to use as in a comparison. It does look a bit off in my opinion, not too off. I still think it looks pretty good. But when I think of how Midoriya should scale next to All Might, I think he should be around his abdomen, since that's how it seems to be in the show. But that's just me. I still think this this height comparison looks pretty good. For McFarlane, this is probably something you've heard me say before. It is something you've heard me say before. The scaling when it comes to the McFarlane figures are really off. And for the sake of not going on a giant rant again, I'm just going to keep it brief. Most of the kids do seem to be a bit taller than what they're supposed to be, especially Todoroki being almost as tall as All Might. It's just not accurate at all when we're comparing the McFarlane All Might to other McFarlane My Hero Academia figures. But as a side note, if you want to scale them up with the Figma figures, I think it actually works pretty well, despite it not being in the same line. And when we move on to Revoltech, I'm not sure how accurate this is, because I haven't really seen anyone scale all three, but the Revoltech All Might seems to be the tallest out of all three of them. Correct me if I'm wrong. And when compared to the Revoltech Midoriya, I think it works pretty well, since the Revoltech Midoriya is taller than both the anime heroes and the Figma. But since I'm guessing All Might, this Revoltech All Might is a lot taller than the other two, I think this actually works pretty well and it doesn't look too off. So when it comes to the scale of the figures, Revoltech, actually I'm not sure. Let me think. Since the anime heroes and Revoltech are pretty good when it comes to scale, but if I had to go for the most accuracy when talking about their own line, yeah, I'd probably give it to Revoltech first, Anime Hero second, and McFarlane third, because of how just off these figures tend to be.
Wait.
Okay, so in all honesty, I did not expect the outcome of this list to be so repetitive. This is not supposed to be a joke or anything. It's just how this ended up being. But when it comes to my final thoughts, this actually ties into what I was saying before. As you may know, whenever I make these videos, it's not really me saying which figure I think is the best. It's just me kind of giving my opinions on what I look for in a figure. And when it comes to this video in particular, Revoltech All Might pretty much has everything I look for in a figure. It looks really good, the paint apps are good, it has great accessories and all that stuff. But the problem with that is that me, as of right now, I can't buy that figure. So I have to pretty much work with what I have, whether that's making it custom like I've done before, or buying a figure that can still do what I want. And that's really what it comes down to when it comes to these comparison videos. It's just kind of me giving information, giving my opinions on them, and letting you decide which figure you want. Because when it comes to these figures, in my opinion, none of these figures are bad. Not even the McFarlane, even though it was third place in every single one. It's just my opinion. Like, remember, I have the McFarlane All Might, or at least the variant, and honestly, I still think it's a good figure. It's just that, technically speaking, the Revoltech and Anime Heroes does All Might better. But that doesn't mean it's not a good figure, and that doesn't mean I'm saying don't buy this figure, it's not good. As always, it's going to be your opinion, and that's fine. Just compared to these other figures, the McFarlane All Might isn't the #1 hero. But I still hope you guys, for one, respect my opinion, and also like the video. If you like this video, be sure to check out the 2 other comparison videos I did. Be sure to check out my social media. Be sure to check out my channel in general, subscribe, And I will see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.